In this week's video, I'm going to be talking about the time I went skydiving. And being a quadriplegic meant that it was not an easy task to convince my doctor, let alone the jump instructors at Skydive Oz, to let me jump out of a plane. But after a lot of persuasion and reassuring my doctor that it was safe to do this, she gave me the all clear. But it still went down to the day of doing the sky jump whether or not the jump instructor was going to say yes or no. So on the day, we were in Batemans Bay and we went to the Moruya airport to do the skydive. And when we got there, the jump instructor came out, his name was Chris, and he said, "Great, so we're gonna do some skydiving today." And I was like, oh shit. I was really expecting that they were going to say no. And I wasn't getting my hopes up for doing this because of that reason. I didn't want to get all excited that I was going to go skydiving and then say no at the end. But I was going to do it. Great. So I filled out the paperwork, I paid for it, I paid an extra $118 to get it filmed, which was definitely worth the money. So after all of that, I went into the other room and they harnessed me up. And now that was no easy task. A few times they had to stand me up, which being a quadriplegic, I don't have that much function of my lower body, which I do have some. And they stood me up, and yes, I can weight bear, so there was no problem with that. And they had to get the harness behind my back and down my legs. And they made a special harness just for me to assist with the free fall and with the landing. And the way this harness worked was there was a harness around my knees, a harness around my ankles, and the one that went from my knees to my waist pulled my knees up. So while I was in free fall, my legs weren't completely out. My feet were together, my knees were partially bent, so I wasn't full on flailing. And after I was all harnessed up, the next thing was to get onto the plane. And the way that we did this, we had to push my wheelchair backwards because my feet and my knees and everything were so tightly harnessed together that I could not move my legs whatsoever. So I had to go backwards because otherwise my feet were just going to drag on the ground if we went forwards. So we went backwards to the plane and they lifted me into the plane. So my cousin on one side, my brother on the other side, and a few instructors on my legs, straight lift up into the plane. And I was not nervous in the slightest. I was excited. I was ready to do this. 14,000 feet does not seem that high until you look out the window. But thankfully, the position that I was in when I was sitting in the plane, I couldn't see out the window. So I wasn't nervous in the slightest until that door opened. My gut sunk. My heart just went, holy cow. There was no way that I couldn't not do this. Well, one was I was closest to the door. So if I didn't do this, my cousin and my brother wouldn't have been able to do this. But the thing is, the second that door opens, it is very unsafe not to jump out. And before I did this, people kept asking me, why do you want to jump out of a perfectly good plane? Okay, first of all, that plane is designed so you don't go on that plane if you don't intend to jump out of it. And also, the reason why I wanted to do it was because people said that I shouldn't. So the door opened and I could see down to the ground. Oh my God. It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And the instructor was behind me and he'd already clipped me up to him, so I was attached to him. I was all harnessed up, my knees were all sorted, everything was fine. And we got to the door and I sort of looked down and I was like, oh no. So he grabbed my head to tilt my head back, and 1, 2, straight out of the plane. It was terrifying to get out of the plane. But when I was in free fall, I'm going 200 kilometers an hour from 14,000 feet in the air. And it was incredible. So I was looking down and I was like, oh my. You don't really appreciate how incredible it is to be that high in the air until you're looking down at it. Looking out of a plane window is completely different to flying through the air seeing it. Even though this was the scariest thing I've ever done, it was the most incredible thing I've ever done. It was amazing. It is something that you can't really explain until you actually do it yourself. So the free fall was 60 seconds, and after 60 seconds the parachute deployed, and the parachute opened a little bit too quickly, and even after this the instructor said that it wasn't supposed to open that quickly. But there was lots of other factors. There was the wind, because it was very, very windy that day. But everything went fine, and the first thing that I noticed when that parachute opened was, one, it pulled me back. Like, I didn't have any pain in my neck afterwards. I did a few days later though. But the harness, as the parachute opened, it pulled me back, and the harness just pushed straight onto my boobs, and it felt like I was getting a mammogram. It hurt so bad. And the harness around my legs, I should have worn different pants, because I was only wearing really thin pants, not those parachute pants that my brother and my cousin were wearing. So that was a little bit painful around my legs and on my boobs, but then the instructor loosened the harness there. And apart from the pain in my legs, everything was fine, and we were just flying in the air. I don't really know what I was thinking. I was sort of still in shock that I had done that I had just come out of a plane. It took 20 minutes to get up to 14,000 feet. And while we were in the plane, about halfway up, I said to the instructor, "This is probably not the best time to tell you that my dad died in a plane accident." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that," but everything was fine. So with the landing, the harness that was around my knees during free fall had fallen below my knees. So I couldn't grab it to lift my knees up. But as we were landing, there were people on the ground that ran and grabbed my legs. So it was just down, 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 thumb straight on the grass. It was fine. And I was still in absolute shock that I had done it. After I had landed and everything was fine, they'd taken the harnesses off, and we were just chilling, waiting for them to make the video, because they still had to put it together, and I got the raw footage as well as the video that they made. And they gave me a certificate, and what it says on the certificate in the gold down the bottom says, "Congratulations, you are now a certified nutcase." So we have it in writing. I hope you have liked this video, and if you have any questions whatsoever, please write them in the comments, and I'm more than happy to answer them. And if there's anything that you want me to be a little bit more specific about in another video, just let me know. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye.